Exciting days indeed. And joining us now to discuss it is eToro market analyst Josh Gilbert. Welcome, Josh.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, of course, we blasted through the 30,000 level in Bitcoin. Do you think that that's as bad as much as we're going to see, or do you think we have some room on the upside?
Well, look, I mean, firstly, I think it was a significant barrier, given that we've sort of been building to this level for the past sort of few weeks now, after we had that sort of real breakout after sort of the banking issues that we've seen, that sort of change in this sort of inflationary and interest rate environment. You know, we've sort of kind of been building up to that, and it's sort of finally been broken. I think that's a huge level for a number of reasons. The first one is because it's a massive psychological level for investors, and secondly, I think this is also the highest price that we've seen since we had all of those issues last year. So the likes of Luna, for example, we're now back above those levels. So I think that's a massive price movement. And in terms of if we've still got a little bit further to go, I think so. I think the key catalyst from here is going to be US CPI. Whether that's the driver to the upside or the driver to the downside, that remains to be seen. But either way, I think that's going to be the key catalyst from here.
What do you think has driven it so far? Is it truly the macroeconomic stuff that we're seeing? This idea that at least inflation might not be so much of a worry now as it is as recession fears are, and therefore that the Fed and other central banks are going to have to start loosening their monetary policy versus what it was before. Yet we still see the market betting on at least a 25 basis points hike at the next meeting. Where does this fall? Is it a macro story, or is it a more micro story? People moving funds around for fear and things like that.
I think mainly it's macro. I think this is the main driver of this rally. I think it's that expectation that inflation falls faster and that interest rates, peak and then are cut sort of sooner than expected. I think we go back to the start of March and these expectations were completely different, right? Markets were pricing in at least a couple more rate rises. Inflation was still pretty high with expectations, not expecting it to come down as fast as what we are right now. So I think that's the most significant change. Of course, from the aspect of looking at the banking issues that we've had, I think that's pretty key. I think that's helped the narrative of investors in the sense that if centralized banking systems, aren't faring as they should be, then they are going to be turning to those decentralized systems that ultimately continue to do what they do. Like I said, I don't think that's been the key driver, but it has certainly helped crypto assets, but more particularly Bitcoin over these last sort of couple of weeks for sure.
And what's going on with Bitcoin dominance? I mean, that's kind of an interesting thing, especially considering that Ether has been in the news so much.
Yeah, well, look, I think what we're really starting to see is that investors are just continuing to look for that haven, and sort of Bitcoin was sort of the asset that investors turned to, initially when this crisis really started to first start. So I think that was what we've really started to see, is that Bitcoin has sort of remained the most dominant crypto amongst investors for sure. We continue to see that, and given its performance, it's also outperformed most altcoins, including Ethereum, which is pretty unusual given the cycles that we've previously seen. When we do start to see these big moves from crypto, we've got 80% move here from Bitcoin so far this year. You would expect to see altcoins outperforming Bitcoin, but that's not the case. I think the reason that is because we had so many issues in 2022. Investors are still, a little bit nervous about what happened there. They're not really willing to move completely, into those sort of riskier altcoins, if you like. And instead, they're looking for that quality in Bitcoin. And I think ultimately, when we've seen sort of other assets continue to increase in volatility, Bitcoin is actually, its volatility is dropping. We understand its risk much better now. And I think that it's becoming a much clearer part of asset allocation for most investors. And I think that's why we're seeing this dominance.
So there's several causations for this dominance, but where do you see de-dollarization playing out? Given that there are so many countries, so many regions that are promoting crypto just as the US is regulating by enforcement or retribution, whatever you want to call it.
Look, I think there's a long way to go until we sort of see that de-dollarization. Absolutely. Obviously, what we've seen in the last sort of few weeks has only highlighted Bitcoin's fundamentals. I think that's clear, in the sense that if, as I said earlier, if people are feeling uneasy about centralized systems, they will move to those decentralized systems. But it also comes as, a bit of trust as well, right? We're starting to see that people want to take advantage over those finances. They want to essentially be their own bank, which is what something Bitcoin can offer. And I think that in terms of what we've seen just globally, in terms of geopolitical tensions over the last couple of years as well, there's just such a bigger push towards using crypto assets. That adoption is obviously going to probably be some way off. Again, we're definitely going to need some sort of regulation in that time as well. I think that's needed in terms of helping crypto investors participate in markets, but also protecting them at the same time. So, there's a long way to go, and ultimately we fully support any regulations that can help move the industry forward and, push forward technological advancements, but also protecting investors at the same time.